welcome back to Regener8d Radio. This is going to be the first of what will hopefully be many bonus episodes. And so these bonus episodes have a very specific purpose. And before I dive into the content of today's video, specifically regarding the Founders Conference from last week, I'd like to talk to you a little bit just about what these bonus videos are and what you should expect from them. First and foremost, they're going to be taking place and recorded by one of our three hosts. Yes, I said three. If you've been following along carefully, you knew that we've brought in Wesley Russell as the second sort of host for Regener8d Radio. Well, with some other developments that have occurred, we've actually decided to have one more person on our sort of team. And now this thing's maybe evolving and spiraling out of control. I don't know. But I'll leave that shrouded in mystery for now on who that will be. So get excited to talk about who that third person will be. But one of the three of us will be doing these bonus videos on our own, and we'll kind of go through different topics of various sorts. And there'll be one-offs, and there'll be series on certain books, book reviews, current events, studies in history or theology. Things like that will be encompassed within these bonus episodes. And I think that they'll be very helpful in many ways, or at least very edifying. They'll be shorter, 15 to 30 minutes maximum, and they'll hopefully will take a little bit more shape and structure as we've continued on to grow in this regard. But for this first bonus episode, which will just feature me, myself, and I'd like to cover, like I said, the National Founders Conference for this past year in 2024 that took place last week in Cape Coral, Florida, at McGregor Baptist Church. Really, I guess it was Fort Myers, but Cape Coral is where Tom Ascol's church is, and Tom Ascol, of course, the fearless leader of Founders Ministries. And so we went there, myself and other folks from my church, including Tony Mattia, who's the senior pastor here. We went and we really enjoyed ourselves at this Founders Conference. I can't tell you just how much it was refreshing to me personally, but also just to be able to meet people and interact with people from all over the place that I've met online and many times and not actually seen them in person. It was just such an incredible experience. And many of you who may watch this, you may have met me in person there, and I was appreciative of the chance to get to know you in person a little bit more. And so I really want other people, though, who did not have the opportunity to go to Founders this year, or really haven't had the opportunity to go to Founders Conference at all, to get a little bit of a taste of what exactly went on there and why I think it's such a worthwhile conference to go to. First and foremost, one of the things that I always appreciate about Founders Conference is that it's pretty cheap. It's really not that expensive of a conference, and frankly, for what you get out of it, they probably give you about $150 or so worth of materials and things like that as you come into and out of that particular conference. And so really I don't see it as much of a expense. It was just something that you can do. You can go. The travel obviously was the hardest part of it. I'm in Wamego, Kansas. To get to Fort Myers, Florida is not the easiest thing. I had 9 hours of delay on the way up there, which actually caused me to miss, and I forgot to even mention this, but it caused me to miss the first day, or not the first day of the conference, but the pre-conference, which was on A Time for Confessionalism with Jim Renahan and Tom Ascol talking on confessionalism, particularly amongst the Baptists. And man, oh man, I really am upset that I missed that. I had some probably sinful covetousness going on that day, but the Lord kept me, and He blessed me with safe travel and many good conversations with people and a couple of gospel conversations in the airports, which were wonderful. And so obviously the Lord has His ways, and if the Lord wills, we will do this or that, and we ought to go with Him. So it was a good thing. So I did miss the pre-conference, so I can't speak to that, but I'm sure it was excellent. Dr. Renahan is always a pleasure, and then Dr. Ascol, of course, himself also really ably speaks on the matter of confessionalism. And so I am happy to be able to know that will come up on YouTube at some point, and the sooner the better. So Founders, if you're watching this, put those lectures up so I can watch them, because I'm upset that I missed them. Anyway, so the conference itself was wonderful. The hosting facilities at McGregor Baptist Church were wonderful. And the pastor there is a wonderful man. Got to speak with him for a while as well. So a really great place to be. And really, of course, the thing that needs to be mentioned first and foremost is the content of the conference itself, the sermons that were given by the speakers there. And I just want to highlight really quickly one sermon, and each of them spoke either 2 or 3 times, but just one of the sermons from each of the speakers that really resonated with me. So first and foremost, Tom Ascol, of course, being the head of Founders Ministries, he preached a sermon on Christ as head of the church, and that's just been such an emphasis in my ministry and something that I've tried to hammer on so much since I've been here in Wamego as the sort of preaching pastor. I've hammered on that so much that it really resonated with me, and it really just made me kind of have continue that drive to preach Christ as the head of the church and to live our lives in subjection to him and his will for his body. And so Tom did an incredible job with that particular sermon. Another sermon that was really incredible was Phil Johnson, and I posted about this on Twitter, so if you follow me on there, you'll know about this a little bit, but there was a clip that was going around just of Phil kind of going through all the different heresies and things like that. He spoke on the incarnation and trying to take the proper view of it, and man, what was great about it was that he just went up on the stage and just unloaded like a fire hose. And if you follow these debates and things like that on Twitter, you knew exactly what was going on, but he didn't mention any of it. He just very casually got up and unloaded so much good Christological doctrine on us, and so I highly recommend, if you can find that sermon, go and listen to Phil Johnson speak on the incarnation. It's really good. Travis Allen is not someone that I was really familiar with, but I listened to him speak, and he was a former Navy SEAL, I believe, one of those kind of specialists of the armed forces anyway. Pretty sure it was a Navy SEAL. And of course, he didn't mention that at all. He just got out there and he spoke on the gentleness of Christ, but he did it in such a way that he spoke about it as really gentleness as strength that is restrained. And I think that was a really helpful thing for many of us who are in the audience. And it's a really helpful thing for many of us who are online terminally, right, in these circles and in these debates, where a lot of times we get into this mindset where we've got to be like bulldog on everything all the time. And so his sermon's kind of taking us back and just letting us scale back and recognize Christ's gentleness, and our need to emulate that was really helpful. Costi Hen preached on Christ as our message, as the message that we bear. And as a pastor who's been speaking on we started the Genesis in our church on December 31st of this past year. And so I've been preaching on God's transcendence, on God's triunity, on the God as the comprehensive creator, and all of these different things, and on the image of God this past Sunday. And while all of those things are helpful, it's really easy for me to jump into those theological things and get really doctrinal in my teaching and forget to preach Christ. And that sounds terrible, and I know it is. And that's one thing that I was just so grateful for the reminder from the entire conference, obviously, but particularly Costi Hen's message on Christ as our message was just really beneficial to my soul. And I immediately, when I was done, he finished his sermon, I popped my laptop open and started typing up notes in my sermon for that next Sunday, which I flew back late and managed to preach the next morning. But I started typing up notes in my sermon saying, no, I got to add, Christ has to be drawn out of this text. And so I did that, and it was a great benefit to me personally. And then that passes on to my congregation. So Costi, thank you. Conrad and Mbewe had a beautiful exposition on the death of Christ and its effects. And I mean, it was presented in such a way that you just haven't heard it before. And Conrad is always a wonderful teacher. And then I think, for me, the highlight of the entire conference was Joel Beake's exhortative sermon on the marriage supper of the Lamb. I can't say enough about that sermon, and I don't even want to ruin it by trying to kind of encapsulate it with my own words. So please go and find Joel Beake's sermon from National Founders Conference 2024 on the marriage supper of the Lamb. I promise you will be blessed by it. It was such a great reminder of the things that we have to look forward to, and as a result of that, the way that we should live our lives in response to it. So really definitely recommend you check that out as well. Just incredible speakers, and I'm really excited about that. And so I hope you guys can get a chance to go and listen to some of those sermons, and if you don't, that's fine too, but make sure you come next year to the next Founders Conference, and you'll be able to see just why I can gush about these guys and the way that they taught over the past week. So really grateful for all of you gentlemen. If you happen to watch this, really grateful for you and your teaching ministries and how they've affected me and how that passes on to the people here at Trinity and Wamego. So that's a little bit about the sermons on Jesus Christ and remembering Jesus Christ. Another thing that happened at that conference was kind of an impromptu meeting of SBC pastors thinking through, what needs to happen going into Indianapolis. And so we had a meeting there with several different people. I won't go into all the details of that. I'm sure you can find it online, but it was just helpful to listen to some of them to talk about why is the SBC such a great institution really at its core, and why is it worth fighting for? And so really we do want to make sure that everyone that's possible is getting out there and going to Indianapolis to be able to vote on the law amendment, among other things. And so certainly, if you are an SBC pastor, make your way out there. I won't speak any more about the meeting itself, but definitely definitely be involved with those things. Be thinking through the SBC properly. So that is another thing that happened. Another quick thing that I'd like to run down is the exhibit tent. I was actually there, not necessarily to represent the Spurgeon Baptist Association of Churches. The Spurgeon Baptist Association of Churches is sort of a Midwest-based, but it really is a national association of Calvinistic Baptist churches. Our main priority is finding churches who prescribe to the doctrines of grace. Not necessarily all of them are 1689 churches, but most of them are, and certainly all of them are Calvinistic churches. And so it's good to have an association like that that's at a national level that we can really come around, especially with things being dicey in other places. And so, again, I won't speak much to that, but it's a really great organization. You can find that. I did their website. It's sbaoc.org. And so you can go and find that out. If you are interested in joining the Spurgeon Baptist Association, by the way, by all means, there's an application on the website. And you can always reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk to you a little bit about the Spurgeon Association as well, some of the things that we do and why it's a good association to be a part of. Baptists are associational, and we ought to really reclaim that heritage and not be denominational, as so many times it feels like we can be within the SBC. But remember that it is truly an association, the SBC at its core, and that we are an associational people. So be looking into those things, and by all means, reach out to me if you have any questions about the SBAOC. But I was there somewhat representing them, and then somewhat representing Christian Witness to Israel, North America, which is a ministry that my father-in-law is sort of the director of ministry for. It has a long pedigree. I would say, as far as I know, it is the only Reformed ministry to the Jewish people. And so that's needed. It's really, really needed. It's a very unique situation trying to minister to Jewish people in particular. And so there's a reason for that. And the beauty of the resources, the materials, the things that we do at CWI, which I am, just full disclosure, I am the media director for. The things that we do, I think, are really helpful in getting people engaged in that mission to bring the gospel back to the Jewish people from whence it came. So certainly we ought to recognize that as important. Anyway, in representing both of those, it was really wonderful to get a lot of connections made, do a lot of networking with different groups and organizations that were there in the exhibit hall. And so I just want to highlight a few of those. First and foremost, one of them that we were right next to, our table was right next door to Jared Payne of A Pilgrim's Coffer. Jared, you were wonderful. You're a great guy, and I really enjoyed getting to chat with you over the course of the past week. One of the things that happened while we were there is our table, the tent had some rain, and the air conditioning unit was right behind our table, and it blew a lot of the water onto our table, and it kind of messed up a few different things. And so we're not, no harm, no foul, but we were blessed to have Jared right next to us because he quickly gave us some information about how we can preserve some of the material, some of the really, really important things that Tony brings. I won't go into all the details of it, but he was able to help us preserve a Bible that was sort of a relic, if you will. But I won't go into all the details of that. So, but it was a blessing getting to know Jared. I love Jared's stuff. I wish I had brought his tie. I bought a tie from him. It's a nice blue and yellow striped tie with that Spurgeon, "We preach Christ and Him crucified" logo along it, and so I wore that on Sunday for church. So yeah, again, Jared, thank you. And I also appreciate the work that Jared is doing. He's sort of doing retypesetting all of Spurgeon's sermons, and he's just kind of getting through the first volume as of right now. And it's kind of incredible that he's taken upon this task of, I think it's 64 volumes of Spurgeon's sermons that he's going to be redoing in its entirety and working with Reformation Heritage Books to print that and put it back out there into the wild, in case you aren't like Tony Mattia here, who has all of those, and then I have another 22 myself. We have a lot of copies of Spurgeon lying around here, so that's really good. So it was great to meet Jared. Another person that I really enjoyed meeting was David Shrock of ChristOverall.com. And David is a wonderful brother. It was really nice getting to talk with him specifically about the Jewish people. They are running their series right now on Israel and the church. They do their monthly sort of focus at ChristOverall.com, and that's the focus that they're on right now. What is Israel? What is the church? How do they interact? And so it was nice getting Stephen, my father-in-law with Christian Witness to Israel, in touch with David. And we had a really great conversation, and he's just a wonderful guy to talk to. So definitely nice to meet you, David, and hope that we can interact more in the future. And then, of course, it's always great to connect with all the seminaries, particularly the Reformed Baptist seminaries. I call it the trifecta. You have Covenant Baptist Theological Seminary, of which I am a student, so it was great to meet Blake and Rex and some other folks who were there, John Miller. It was just wonderful to really put faces to names and actually see those guys in person. And then, of course, IRBS, the International Reformed Baptist Seminary, which is led by Jim Renehan. So, I've met Jim several times now, and he's always a wonderful guy to talk to. And Brent, who is kind of one of the main guys who travels around to do the promotion for them. And then, of course, Scott Callahan and Tom Askell for IOPT. Those three institutions are all doing incredible work. And when people come and ask me, hey, what should I think about for seminary? Those are the places that I actually point people now. As much as I would like to point them to the SBC seminaries, and I think that there's great gain from those seminaries, of course, as of right now, I do think that those smaller but more confessional seminaries are doing the work that needs to be done, and I pray that the Lord would increase their tribes. So it was wonderful to meet and see some of those guys again, and I highly recommend, if you are looking into seminary, that you look into either Covenant Baptist Theological Seminary, which I must contractually state is the one that I would recommend the highest, because it's the one that I'm a member of as of right now, and then, of course, IRBS and IOPT. All three of those are going to be great as you continue to grow and learn, and especially if you're seeking a role in the ministry. So look through those things for sure. So the exhibit tent was great, and there were so many other exhibits. I don't have time to name them all, but there are so many wonderful ones. Heart Cry was there. African Christian University was there. Yes, just many, many different groups that are great to talk to and catch up with. So that is the exhibit hall, and then finally, one of the things that I really want to highlight, of course, whenever you go to a founders conference, the thing that you spend a lot of time in, maybe too much time in for certain people like myself, would be the bookstore. And of course, there's several different iterations of the bookstore. There is founders section, which is the largest section. Of course, they have all their founders press titles and the things that they are reprinting and selling back in the very back, which was really great. And I bought several things from them. So actually, I'll kind of go through, as I go through the different bookstores that were there, I'll show you what I got. So first and foremost, the main things that I really wanted to get when I was going there, where are they? I have too many things on my desk. Things that I really wanted to get when I was going there and kind of was anticipating buying when I got to Founders are these two titles here. These are the two newest titles from Founders Press. The first one is by a close friend of mine, Brandon Ray. It's called Spurgeon's Forgotten Sabbatarianism, and it's just kind of a historical theology work of Charles Spurgeon, and starting out from his time in Exeter Hall and the music hall, and how he didn't want to go through. I can't get into all the details. I don't want to give it all away, but he didn't want to continue in that space if they were going to make him, or if they were going to continue doing things on Sundays. Anyway, there's a lot to this. It's a really incredibly well-researched book on Spurgeon's view of the Christian Sabbath, which I would agree with personally. And so even if you don't agree with it, it would be a great book for you to catch up on what Spurgeon thought of it. And if you have your mind changed, great. I would say that you should. But if you don't, of course, I think it's still helpful, and it's going to be good for you to see what other people thought and why about the issue of this Christian Sabbath. The other book that they had there that I really wanted to buy is a revolutionary reading of Romans 13 by Dr. Timothy Decker. Tim Decker teaches for Covenant Seminary and IRBS. Actually, he teaches Greek, and is just a wonderful guy. I've interacted with him several times, and so when I knew this was coming out, I was really excited to get my hands on it. So I went and bought it on the first day of the conference, or I guess it was the second day of the conference, actually. I went and bought it, and then Founders was gracious enough to say in their second day's sessions as they began right after I bought it, hey, all pastors, we're going to give you a copy of this book. So I went and got my free copy, and then I did return the one that I bought. Don't harp on me too much, Dr. Decker. I apologize. But the reason that I returned it is because I was going to go ahead and purchase something else. The thing that they had on a pretty steep discount at Founders was Herman Bavinck's deluxe edition of Reformed Dogmatics. So I did go ahead and splurge on this. And my excuse is that I need the half of one of these. I need the half on the Doctrine of God for my Doctrine of God class at CBTS, and I imagine I'll need it for other things in my seminary time. So that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. But I did pick that up from the Founders Bookstore, and they had it on a pretty steep discount, which was really nice to be able to see. And so, of course, the Founders Bookstore, it had so much more. There were so many good things. There was even a whole section for kids and for men and for women, and those were really helpful, I think, just having those those good things out, especially as you go around to bookstores, or you look on what some of the other retailers, Christian booksellers are promoting for kids and for adults. It's just not great. And so to see and to know that those are curated and those are good, trusted titles was definitely helpful. So Founders Bookstore was a wonderful experience for me to get all of those things that I wanted. And of course, another bookstore that is always present at Founders as long as Joel Beakey's around, and he's always going to be, is the Reformation Heritage Bookstore. And of course, there's a lot of books that they carry as well. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of books that they had there. It was really wonderful to see, and so many of them are books that I really wanted to get. For example, I really would love to get my hand on Van Maastricht's books, his systematic theologies that he's putting out and that are currently coming out. And so they were there, but having bought Bavinck, I can't justify two. So I just stuck with Bavinck for now, and I'll get those Van Maastricht ones next year, we'll say. But I did have the opportunity to meet, actually I didn't mention this earlier, I did have the opportunity to meet Joel Beakey and to chat with him for a little bit, and he actually he's such a warm pastoral guy. He prayed over Christian Witness to Israel's ministry, prayed over our individual ministries and my pastorate, and just got to chat with him for a little bit. And of course, it was funny, I started talking about my kids just a little bit, and he immediately jumped into salesman mode. Oh, you have children? Well, let me show you these books. And if one of those is the Family Worship Bible Guide, I don't have that with me because I have a copy of it elsewhere in the church, but the Family Worship Bible Guide is an incredible resource. Incredible. It has every single chapter in the Bible with a short breakdown of what it's about, and it's really good for people who are looking to take their family through the Bible and take it one chapter at a time and work through it that way. And so that is something that's a really good resource that he was recommending to me. But then he also recommended to me these, which are brand new, and they're written by Joel Beakey and Nick Thompson. These are, what are they called? Teach Your Children the Scriptures. The first one is Beginning, obviously, and the second one is Wilderness. So this one covers Genesis, and this one covers Exodus through Deuteronomy. Dr. Beakey has informed me that there will be an entire set of these for the entire Bible. And so they are really good. They have some really cool information in them. It's got a review from the last one, the reading itself, and then kind of some questions about the reading, and then a section to reflect, and then, of course, petitions to go to the Lord in prayer. And so really good little devotionals to use with your family. And so I'm planning on using these as soon as I finish the one that we're currently doing, which we're coming up on very soon. And so the Reformation Heritage Bookstore was just wonderful, and of course it was a pleasure to meet and chat with Dr. Beakey. And so there were other ones there as well. Crossway had a bookstore there with a lot of great books. The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self, which is it's over there somewhere. And then several other books that I've recognized and read recently that come out of Crossway. They do put out a lot of good resources, even if there are some that are not, I don't agree with as much. But definitely some really good books that were at the Crossway section as well. New Growth Press, which puts out some books that I've had. I recognized it mostly because I have Marty Wachowski's devotionals, which is the one that I was using before. Which I recommend. Those are great as well. So New Growth Press is another really good one. Banner of Truth was there. They didn't have a full bookstore, so they just kind of had a selection of books to show you, and then some discounts if you ordered online. But always good to talk with them there. I actually had a really long conversation with a gentleman from England who was there and representing Banner of Truth, and he did kind of go through a lot of different books and things with me that he thought would be cool for me to get, and I agree, of course. Finally, the last thing I kind of want to discuss is some of the free resources that they gave out. Desiring God Ministries has always been a really good partner of Founders. I think they support each other very well. And so, of course, John Piper sends all of his regards and his books along. So we got 2 free books from Founders. First is this quite weighty 21 Servants of Sovereign Joy, which is a really good book. I actually have another copy of this. So I might be giving this one away. But this is a really excellent book. Someone in my church will enjoy this, I'm sure. And then God's Passion for His Glory, which I read this ages ago, and I know it was good, but I can't remember too much about it. But regardless, it's nice to get some of these books for free. And then, of course, in every bag, there's this new really small book, but it's really excellent, by Tom Nettles, called Remember Jesus Christ, that was written for specifically this. It says, believing the absolute truth about the absolute person in a relativistic age. So you can sort of see the general tenor of how this book is written by Tom Nettles. And so anything written by Nettles you're going to want to read. So definitely check it out. So lots of free resources. Not just that, there was a ton of other little pamphlets and things like that were given out as well. I can't even list them all. There's too many. There was a great mug. I used this Founders mug at the beginning of the video as a little aside. But there was a great mug for the the Institute of Public Theology, an IOPT mug, little mug that was in all the bags as well. And I have been drinking my coffee from that the past few days. So it's a nice little mug. So thank you to whoever decided to put that in there. And so lots of things like that. And it's really just a wonderful conference. Really all of the resources that you can get. It's worth the price of admission for sure. And to be able to, fly these people in and have these wonderful teachers come together. I do highly recommend it. I don't go to many conferences. I don't generally like I'll be honest, I don't really generally like the idea of conferences in some ways. I think it can get a little too crazy. I think there's a little bit of cult of personality that goes on with some of these things. But I kind of exempt founders from that, frankly. And so I don't know. I can't say enough good things about Tom Askell's ministry and founders ministries more broadly. And I pray that you guys would get the chance to go to that as well sometime and get your own little name tag that you can keep somewhere. I'm using that as a bookmark right now. So that's really all I have to say. I will say next year's theme for the Founders Conference in January is going to be Revive Us Again, and we'll focus on revival and revivalism. So I'm looking forward to that. It's always a really interesting topic, and I know it's Pastor Tony's, who's the senior pastor here. It's probably his favorite topic to discuss, so I know he was excited to hear that is the topic next year. But I do recommend that you try to make plans way in advance to go. I had to make plans, and I think it was like June, to say, yes, I'm definitely going to Founders this year. I'm definitely going to book the flights. We're going to get it all done and taken care of. And I'm glad that I did, because it's the first time I've gotten to go. I've tried to go for 4 years. I had a COVID 1 year, and then a baby born, and then COVID another year. So it's been a long time coming, but I did finally manage to go to Founders this year, and I'm just excited and blessed to have been able to go. So thank you, Tom. Thank you, Founders Ministries. Graham, who did such a great job moderating the Q&A panels. I didn't even mention. There's so many other things that I could talk about that happened at Founders Conference that were just wonderful. But yeah, I thank you guys for all the hard work that you do, and I pray that you would continue doing that hard work. And I love being able to support you, even with short videos like this, to kind of give the highlights. So hopefully this was helpful to you. If you've thought about going to Founders before, definitely, like I said, recommend it. And if you have any questions or any thoughts about what I've talked about, maybe the books that I've mentioned, or maybe the conference itself, or anything about Regenerated Radio, always happy to field your questions and comments. You can actually email regenerated with the 8. I've said this to a few people at the conference. I kind of regret doing the 8 thing, because now I have to explain it to everybody. But Regenerated Radio, you can find it in the description, and you can also just look at the title and you'll see how to spell it. regeneratedradio@gmail.com. Or you can leave a comment on this video, or you can reach out to me on Twitter, or email me from my church page. I mean, there's many different ways to get in touch with me, but you're always welcome to. And I love meeting you guys and talking with you. So if you have anything, feel free to reach out. But in the meantime, God bless, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.